Okay, shall I ask you questions?
Sure. That's why I'm here.
What prompted you to write your book?
Um, I really wrote it because I wanted to write a great book. You know, it was written, and the intentions were more to write a work of literature than to write a self-help book. I hoped that the book would help people, and it certainly has. I've gotten probably 12 to 15,000 letters in the last year. But it was written to be a work of art that would hopefully change people's lives, and I think I probably succeeded on both levels.
What made you change? What made you change from being addicted to, not?
Right after I entered rehab, I had to go through a bunch of sort of diagnostic health tests to check out the state of my body. And the doctors told me that I was close to death and that if I kept using, I would die. Basically, fear of death made me change. And then once I decided I was too scared to die, that it was just a process of decision making. I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm not going to use drugs anymore, and figuring out ways to support myself through that process of decision making. But mostly I chose to get clean because I didn't want to die. I was scared of it.
I can't quit you, babe.
Were you using for the pleasure of using, or for some other reason?
I don't think any addict, once you're addicted to something, you're not using it for pleasure. Pleasure's gone. And if somebody is saying that they're using for pleasure, they're probably not addicted. So no, for years, for 5 years before I stopped, there was no pleasure in what I did. It was just maintenance.
Was it because of physical need, or?
Both physical and psychological. I mean, I certainly had physical addictions. I was diagnosed with physical addictions to alcohol and cocaine. But, all addiction, I believe, comes from an emotional place. You're not born with a physical addiction to something. Nor do I necessarily believe you're born with a physical urge for something. Every drug addict I've ever met, every drug addict I've ever spoken to, and I've been around a lot of them, has said that they do what they do because they have feelings, emotions that they don't understand, that they don't like, that they cannot deal with. And they learn very quickly that drugs make them go away and alcohol makes them go away, and that's good if they go away. And so you keep using until you become addicted, and until the feelings of being a drug addict are just sort of interlocked with whatever feelings you started out with that you didn't like.
So it's more like self-medication as opposed to using because it's fun or pleasurable.
I mean, I think there are, yeah, absolutely. I think even people who have intentions to start out using drugs for fun or for pleasure and become addicted to them are usually still addicted because they're filling some emotional void, or they're destroying some unpleasant emotional experience.
They tried to make me go to rehab. I said no, no, no. Yes, I've been black, but when I come back, no, no, no. I ain't got the time, and if my daddy thinks I'm fine.
Do you think it's necessary to be taken out of the environment in order to quit?
I don't think it's necessary, but I think it helps a lot. I think it's much better if it's possible. I would always advocate treatment if it's possible for an individual, mostly because it gives you a break. It lets you go into some place where you can't get drugs and you can't get liquor, and it lets your body physically get a chance to recover maybe a little bit, or at least break the cycle of physical addiction. And then it also just gives you a sort of a psychological and emotional break, and gives you a chance to maybe think about how you've been living and how you want to live in the future, if at all. So I think if you have a chance to go to treatment, it's good. It's the best thing.
If you were going to, obviously the treatment environment, is 12-step treatment and all that component. If you were going to design a treatment environment, how would you set it up? I mean, how would you set it up? Besides, taking somebody out of, giving them a chance to.
I think I would have 12 steps be a component of a treatment environment, but I would have people who are much more open-minded than what I experienced in treatment centers. I think 98% of the treatment centers in America now work entirely off this 12-step model. And the 12-step model just frankly doesn't work for the overwhelming majority of the people who try it. So there's got to be some other way. And I've met a lot of people, and I hear from a lot of people who've done it other ways. And there are a lot of ways to try to do it. There is the simple, sort of what I did, decision-making process / self-will process. I cannot do this. I do it because I'm weak, because I make a decision to do it. I have to learn to change that process of decision-making. I have to be stronger. I cannot accept excuses for the way I behave anymore. I think there are, in certain cases, people have religious experiences outside of AA that do help them. I think, psychotherapy and various other forms of therapy can help people, and that again doesn't have anything to do with 12 steps. So I would have a treatment center that offered patients a number of options and let them sort of choose their own path and figure out what they're most comfortable with and what works best for them.
That, God willing, would be marvelous.
Down with disease, 3 weeks in my bed, trying to stop these demons that keep
Could you elaborate a little on, addiction is a disease, this belief that addiction is a disease that's really in the 12-step community primarily, but that some doctors have also adopted?
I mean, if you do your research, you'll find that addiction was initially diagnosed as a disease or classified as a disease about 100 years ago. And at the same time they classified addiction as a disease, they classified homosexuality as a disease, and they classified being black as a disease. Now, certainly we've progressed enough to reject the ludicrous notions that homosexuality is a disease and being black is a disease. We have never rejected what I feel is the ludicrous notion that addiction is a disease. There's too much of a component of free will in it. When you use a drug or when you use alcohol, there is a process of decision making. There is a process of I want, I need, I am going to get. And involved in that process of decision making are sort of hundreds of smaller decisions. If I was going to use right now, I would first have to decide what I was going to do. Was I going to drink? Was I going to use cocaine? If I'm going to drink, what am I going to drink? If I'm going to use cocaine, in what form am I going to take it? Where am I going to get it? How much am I going to spend? Where am I going to use it? Under what conditions am I going to use it? How much am I going to use of it? And what am I going to do when I'm done? There are too many decisions involved in that process for that to be a disease, or for that process of decision making to be a function of a disease. Diseases are medical conditions over which we have no real control. Somebody who has cancer can't go to a support group and make it go away. Somebody who has Alzheimer's can't go to worship a god and make it go away. But somehow, for some reason, people who have addiction can go to a support group and make it go away. People who have addiction can go to a religion, become part of a religion, and make it go away. I think that idea alone should dismiss the notion that addiction is a disease. There's too much of a component of free will involved for it to be a disease, as a disease is sort of traditionally classified.
Nicely said.
Augie, have you fought the romance of alcohol for a while? How's that going?
I'm a big fan. I was actually I was raised by 2 alcoholics, and I'll tell you what, if you had the alcoholic parents, this is the greatest way to be raised in the world. I mean, it's a nonstop party. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are a few differences. I remember every night at dinner as a kid, I'd hear stuff like, if you don't finish your beer, you can't have any Baileys. Hey, there's sober children in Africa, less fortunate than you. But my favorite drink, what it's called, is love that Irish coffee.
Yeah.
Because I like my coffee like I like my women. Yeah, filled with booze. It's just a way of getting around not being responsible for your own behavior. That's all it is. And when people understand, quit blaming the booze. I mean, here's the thing. You know what? If you're a jackass when you're drinking, it's because you're a jackass. Okay? That's what's going on there. There ain't no magical equation of add liquid, make jackass. No, this is what they call in the insurance game a pre-existing condition. Quit blaming the booze. How about the woman in Texas hits the guy in the intersection, rides home with him lodged in her windshield, right? Gets all the way home. The guy bleeds to death in her windshield. At her sentencing hearing, she says, "Oh, well, I was drunk." You were drunk? Gee, I've been pretty messed up before. I've never quite been hit a homeless man at an intersection, drive home with him lodged in my windshield, and let him bleed to death in my garage drunk. I don't know exactly how many happy hour cocktails that takes in order to make that okay. And then she said she was on ecstasy. You know what? Without giving away too much. If you're on ecstasy, you don't let the guy bleed to death alone in your garage. You sit there for 8 hours stroking his hair while he bleeds to death in your garage. Listening to some Depeche Mode or Joy Division.